The fluorescent lights hum relentlessly above rows of cramped desks in a concrete bunker hidden behind Pearl Harbor's palm trees. It's 3:47 a.m., May 13th, 1944, and Lieutenant Junior Grade Robert Bobby Chen adjusts his headphones one more time, listening to the static-filled voices crackling across thousands of miles of Pacific darkness. Chen doesn't look like a weapon of war. At 22, this Stanford mathematics graduate with thick glasses and perpetually ink-stained fingers appears more suited for a library than a battlefield. But inside this nondescript building marked only as Station HYPO, Bobby Chen and his fellow codebreakers are about to orchestrate one of the most devastating hunting campaigns in naval history. The intercepted Japanese transmission sounds like meaningless electronic noise to most ears. But to Chen, trained in the intricate patterns of Imperial Navy codes, every beep and whistle tells a story. He scribbles coordinates, timestamps, submarine identification numbers. His hand trembles slightly, not from fatigue, but from the weight of what he's deciphering. "Got another one," Chen calls softly across the room, his voice barely carrying over the mechanical hum of decryption machines. I-16, estimated arrival Buin, 2200 hours, May 20th. Lieutenant Commander Joseph Finnegan, the watch officer, walks over and examines Chen's work. Finnegan's weathered face shows the strain of 2 years spent turning Japanese communications into American tactical advantages. He knows that every decoded message represents dozens, sometimes hundreds of lives hanging in the balance. "How confident are you in this intercept, Chen?" 95%, sir. The transmission signature matches I-16's previous patterns, and the timing coordinates align with known Japanese resupply schedules. Finnegan nods grimly. In 30 minutes, this information will reach Admiral William Bull Halsey's headquarters. Within 6 hours, it will be transmitted to a small flotilla of destroyer escorts patrolling the Solomon Islands. By tomorrow evening, Lieutenant Commander Yoshitaka Takeuchi, a veteran submarine captain who has survived 9 war patrols and countless depth charge attacks, will be dead at the bottom of the Pacific, along with his entire crew. But neither Chen nor Takeuchi understands the rules of this new kind of warfare yet. The Japanese commander still believes in the traditional submarine doctrine: stealth versus stealth, hunter versus hunter, with victory decided by skill, luck, and courage. He has no idea that American technology has fundamentally changed the game, turning every radio transmission into a death sentence and every submarine into a sitting target. What happens when the most invisible weapons of war suddenly become completely visible to their enemies? When the hunters become the hunted, and the prey doesn't even realize the killing has already begun? The answer lies in 12 days of unprecedented destruction that will reshape submarine warfare forever. Admiral Somu Toyota stares at the map spread across his flagship's wardroom table, his weathered hands tracing the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Appointed just weeks ago as Commander-in-Chief of Japan's combined fleet, Toyota faces a nightmare scenario that keeps him awake through endless tropical nights. American forces are advancing across the Pacific like an unstoppable tide, but Toyota cannot determine their next target. Will they strike north toward the Marianas, west toward Palau and the Philippines? His massive fleet, 6 carriers, 10 battleships, 40 other warships, carries enough fuel for exactly one decisive battle. Choose wrong, and Japan's last hope for naval victory dies with empty fuel tanks. "We must have reconnaissance," Toyota tells his staff officers, his voice carrying the weight of a dying empire. "Our patrol aircraft cannot penetrate their air defenses. Radio intelligence gives us fragments, not certainty. The submarines are our eyes." Rear Admiral Noboru Owada commands the submarine force that will serve as those eyes. From his headquarters on Saipan, Owada studies the intelligence reports with growing unease. His largest, most capable, I-class submarines are increasingly pressed into service as underwater cargo ships, hauling rice and ammunition to starving, isolated garrisons bypassed by Allied advances. The scouting mission falls to his smaller, row-class boats, coastal patrol submarines never designed for long-range reconnaissance. Lieutenant Commander Takeuchi aboard I-16 will make one final supply run to Bougainville. Then 7 row-class submarines will establish the NA line, a 200-mile picket between the Admiralty Islands and Truk, waiting to spot and report American fleet movements. These boats lack radar, Owada confides to his aide. They have radar detectors, but no surface search capability. They'll be operating blind except for periscope observations. What Owada doesn't know is that Admiral Toyoda's entire strategy depends on submarines that are already doomed. 3,000 miles away at Pearl Harbor, the men of Fleet Radio Unit Pacific work around the clock in their secret bunker. They've broken multiple Japanese naval codes, but their greatest weapon isn't cryptography, it's speed. Intelligence means nothing if it arrives too late. Lieutenant Commander Hamilton Haynes receives the decoded intelligence about I-16 while his destroyer escort division refuels at Purvis Bay in the Solomon Islands. 3 ships, USS England, USS George, and USS Raby, all newly commissioned Buckley-class destroyer escorts designed specifically for submarine hunting. These aren't the massive battleships that capture headlines. At 306 feet long, they're dwarfed by fleet carriers and cruisers. But every line of their construction screams lethal purpose. QSL-1 sonar for detection, depth charge racks, and K-gun projectors for attack. And most importantly, the new Mark 10 Hedgehog, a British-designed forward-firing mortar that will revolutionize anti-submarine warfare. Aboard USS England, Executive Officer Lieutenant John Williamson drives his crew through endless training drills with obsessive intensity. At 26, this Alabama native survived 9 months of convoy duty in the North Atlantic, watching German U-boats torpedo merchant ships within sight of his destroyer. The difference between living and dying is measured in seconds. Williamson tells his sonar operators during yet another drill. The submarine captain who reacts faster survives. The sonar operator who identifies contacts quicker saves the ship. There are no participation trophies in submarine warfare. 19-year-old Soundman Roger Bernhardt practices contact identification until his ears ache. Fish schools sound different from submarines. Whales have distinctive acoustic signatures. Temperature layers create false echoes. But a submarine trying to hide, that creates a specific sound pattern that Bernhardt is learning to recognize instinctively. The crew initially resents Williamson's relentless training schedule. They're missing shore leave, working double watches, practicing attack runs until the Hedgehog crews can reload in under 3 minutes. But Williamson knows something they don't yet understand. The old rules of submarine warfare are about to change completely. Traditional depth charges explode at preset depths, whether they hit anything or not. The explosions disrupt sonar contact, giving surviving submarines precious seconds to escape during the blind period. Submarine captains have learned to time their evasive maneuvers to exploit this weakness, but Hedgehog projectiles only explode on contact. Miss the submarine, and there's no explosion, meaning sonar contact continues uninterrupted. Hit the submarine, and even one contact-fused projectile can breach the hull. It's a weapon system that rewards precision and punishes submarines that rely on traditional evasion tactics. The Japanese don't know about Hedgehog's full capabilities. Williamson explains to his officers during a wardroom meeting. Their submarine doctrine assumes we'll lose sonar contact during depth charge attacks. They'll try standard evasion patterns that worked against conventional weapons. That's when we kill them. On May 18, 1944, Commander Haynes receives the electrifying message from 3rd Fleet. Japanese sub believed heading to supply beleaguered forces at Buen. He is believed to be approaching this point from the north and should arrive in that area by about 1400 hours 20th May. Good hunting. As the 3 destroyer escorts get underway, their crews don't yet understand they're beginning the most successful submarine hunting campaign in naval history. Lieutenant Commander Takeuchi aboard I-16, carrying bags of rice for starving Japanese troops, has no idea that his routine radio transmission has already sealed his fate. The hunters are moving toward their prey, guided by technology the prey cannot imagine and armed with weapons the prey has never encountered. May 19th, 1944. The Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly under a blazing tropical sun as 3 American destroyer escorts cut through moderate swells northwest of Bougainville. Aboard USS England, Soundman Roger Bernhardt adjusts his headphones and listens to the ocean's symphony, the rhythm of the ship's engines, the whisper of water flowing past the hull, the distant clicks and calls of marine life. At 1:25 p.m., everything changes. "Contact!" Bernhardt shouts, his teenage voice cracking with excitement and terror. "Contact! Bearing 045, range approximately 1,300 yards." Lieutenant Junior Grade Harrison, the officer of the deck, stares at the 19-year-old sonar operator with disbelief. According to intelligence estimates, I-16 should be miles away. This has to be a mistake, probably a school of fish or a temperature layer creating false echoes. "Are you certain, Bernhardt?" Harrison demands. "That contact shouldn't be there." Bernhardt presses his headphones tighter against his ears, listening to the distinctive rhythmic pulse that every sonar operator learns to recognize. His hands shake as he fine-tunes the equipment, double-checking bearing and range. The sound is unmistakable, the mechanical heartbeat of a large submarine trying to hide. "Echoes sharp and clear, sir," Bernhardt replies, his voice steady now. "Sound is good. It's a submarine, sir. Big one." The general alarm shatters the afternoon quiet as USS England transforms from a ship at routine patrol into a predator locked onto prey. Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton rushes to the bridge, while Executive Officer John Williamson appears at the sonar station, his weathered face intense with concentration. 300 feet below the surface, Lieutenant Commander Yoshitaka Takeuchi realizes his worst nightmare is beginning. The veteran submarine captain has survived 9 war patrols through skill, experience, and an intuitive understanding of American anti-submarine tactics. But as I-16's sonar operator reports multiple surface contacts closing rapidly, Takeuchi knows he's been caught in the most vulnerable position possible, submerged but detected, with nowhere to run. "Emergency deep," Takeuchi orders. "All ahead flank, right full rudder." I-16 plunges toward the ocean floor in a desperate diving spiral, her hull groaning under the pressure as compressed air hisses through ballast tank vents. Takeuchi initiates radical evasive maneuvers, changing speed, direction, and depth in unpredictable patterns designed to break sonar contact and confuse American attack runs. Above, USS England closes for her first attack. Lieutenant Commander Pendleton positions the ship at the optimal firing angle while Williamson coordinates with the Hedgehog. Crew. 24 contact-fused projectiles sit ready in the forward-firing mortar, each one a 35-pound package of high explosive designed to detonate only on direct contact with a submarine's hull. "Fire!" Pendleton orders. The Hedgehog erupts in a sequence of rapid-fire launches, sending projectiles in an elliptical pattern 200 yards ahead of England's bow. For 7 agonizing seconds, the projectiles sink through the water toward I-16's estimated position. Then, silence. No explosions. The first attack has missed. Takeuchi allows himself a moment of hope. The American attack pattern seems familiar, similar to depth charge runs he's survived before. He orders another radical course change, diving deeper while his crew struggles to maintain trim and avoid creating noise that might betray their position. But this isn't traditional depth charge warfare, and Takeuchi doesn't understand the new rules yet. Unlike conventional depth charges that explode whether they hit anything or not, the Hedgehog's contact-fused projectiles detonate only on impact. No explosions mean no sonar disruption. USS England maintains perfect contact with I-16 throughout the first attack and immediately begins maneuvering for a second run. Williamson studies the sonar display, calculating I-16's probable course and speed. The Japanese submarine is following standard evasion doctrine, but standard doctrine assumes American sonar contact will be disrupted by depth charge explosions. Instead, England's sonar team tracks every movement with crystal clarity. He's turning to port, Soundman Bernhardt reports, increasing speed, depth now 250 feet. The second Hedgehog attack launches at 1:38 p.m. Again, 24 projectiles arc through the air and sink toward the desperately maneuvering submarine. Again, silence, but this time, one projectile finds its mark. The muffled explosion reverberates through the water as a single Hedgehog charge detonates against I-16's outer hull. The impact isn't immediately fatal, but it tears a gash in the submarine's pressure hull and triggers flooding in the aft compartments. Emergency lighting flickers on as I-16's crew fights to save their ship. Takeuchi realizes with growing horror that the Americans are using some new weapon system he's never encountered. Traditional depth charge attacks would have ended his ability to track England's position, giving him precious seconds to escape during the blind period. Instead, the American destroyer maintains perfect sonar contact, repositioning for additional attacks with surgical precision. All compartments report damage, Takeuchi orders, but the responses tell a story of mounting catastrophe. Water flooding aft, electrical systems damaged, battery compartment compromised. I-16 is dying by degrees, but she's still fighting. Lieutenant Commander Pendleton realizes his first two attacks have failed to achieve a kill. Standard naval doctrine would call for additional runs by the attacking ship, but Pendleton makes a decision that reveals his confidence in his executive officer's tactical abilities. "Take the con, John," Pendleton tells Williamson. "Bring us around for another run." This moment transforms USS England's bridge. The ship's captain steps aside, allowing his 26-year-old executive officer to handle the final attack. It's an extraordinary display of trust and recognition that Williamson's obsessive training has prepared him for exactly this moment. Williamson positions England with mathematical precision, calculating I-16's probable position based on sonar contact, estimated speed, and evasive maneuvering patterns. The Japanese submarine is wounded but still capable of radical course changes that could spoil the attack. At 1:43 p.m., Williamson orders the fourth Hedgehog attack. Miss. The crew's tension reaches breaking point. They've fired 3/4 of their Hedgehog ammunition at a single submarine. Miss this final attack, and they'll have to switch to conventional depth charges, giving I-16 the sonar-blind escape opportunity Takeuchi desperately needs. "One more run," Williamson announces, his voice steady despite the enormous pressure. "Make this one count." At 1:43 p.m. and 30 seconds, USS England launches her fifth and final Hedgehog attack against I-16. 24 projectiles arc through the tropical air and disappear beneath the Pacific's surface. For 7 seconds that feel like eternity, the crew waits in absolute silence. Then the ocean erupts. 5 Hedgehog projectiles detonate simultaneously against I-16's hull, breaching the submarine's pressure-resistant compartments in multiple locations. The contact explosions trigger a catastrophic secondary blast as seawater floods the battery compartment, creating chlorine gas while I-16's own torpedoes detonate sympathetically. The massive underwater explosion lifts USS England's 1,640-ton hull partially out of the water, slamming crewmen to the deck and knocking equipment loose throughout the ship. The blast is so powerful that sailors initially think England herself has been torpedoed. Lieutenant Commander Takeuchi and 106 other submariners die instantly as I-16 breaks apart and plummets toward the ocean floor, carrying her cargo of rice that will never reach the starving Japanese garrison at Bougainville. 20 minutes later, debris begins surfacing around USS England. Pieces of cork insulation, wooden fragments with Japanese characters, a 75-pound bag of rice that confirms intelligence estimates about I-16's supply mission. Most ominously, a dozen sharks appear within minutes, thrashing in the expanding oil slick that marks I-16's grave. For the first time, USS England's crew confronts the human reality of their technological superiority. Each successful attack means 40 to 80 men dying in the crushing depths of the Pacific. The initial excitement of combat gives way to sobering silence as sailors realize they've just participated in the systematic destruction of human beings. But this is only the beginning. 3,000 miles away at Pearl Harbor, Fleet Radio Unit Pacific intercepts another Japanese transmission, this one from Admiral Owada, ordering his 7 Roe-class submarines to relocate their positions along the NA line. Within 48 hours, American codebreakers have plotted the exact latitude and longitude of every Japanese submarine in the patrol line. The systematic hunt is about to begin. By May 31, 1944, USS England had achieved something unprecedented in the annals of naval warfare. 6 Japanese submarines destroyed in 12 days. Soundman Roger Bernhardt, the teenager who made the first crucial contact detection, found himself transformed from a nervous recruit into a combat veteran whose ears had guided over 300 men to their deaths. Executive Officer John Williamson, the Alabama native whose obsessive training had prepared England's crew for technological warfare, received the ultimate recognition: command of the ship that had become synonymous with submarine hunting excellence. His relentless drilling had paid off in the most deadly way possible. The human cost was staggering on both sides. Each Japanese submarine carried between 40 and 80 highly trained submariners, the cream of the Imperial Navy's underwater fleet. RO-106's Lieutenant Uda, RO-104's Lieutenant Izubuchi, RO-116's Lieutenant Commander Okabe, RO-108's Lieutenant Obari, and RO-105's Lieutenant Inoue, all experienced submarine commanders who had survived multiple war patrols, died with their entire crews in crushing depths. For USS England's sailors, the psychological weight of systematic killing created lasting trauma. A young seaman approached Lieutenant Williamson after the 3rd kill, asking, "Sir, how do you feel about killing all those men?" Williamson could only answer that war was about killing, and the more ships they sank, the sooner it would all be over. The response haunted him for the rest of his life. The strategic impact extended far beyond individual ship casualties. Admiral Somu Toyota, convinced that the submarine losses indicated American fleet movement toward the Philippines, repositioned Japan's combined fleet southward in preparation for the decisive battle. When American forces actually invaded the Marianas in June 1944, Japanese defenders were in the wrong location entirely. The resulting Battle of the Philippine Sea became known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Japanese naval aviation, already weakened by pilot losses and fuel shortages, lost over 600 aircraft and 3 aircraft carriers in a single day. Japan's ability to conduct offensive carrier operations effectively ended, while American forces captured airfields within bombing range of the Japanese home islands. The technological revolution in anti-submarine warfare spread rapidly throughout the Pacific Fleet. The combination of radio intelligence, advanced sonar systems, and contact-fused weapons like the Hedgehog transformed submarine hunting from a game of chance into a science of systematic destruction. By war's end, Japan had lost 130 submarines, 75% of their entire submarine force. Lieutenant Commander Yoshitaka Takeuchi's routine radio transmission about delivering rice to Bougainville had inadvertently revealed the fundamental vulnerability of submarine warfare in the electronic age. Every communication, every radio pulse, every transmission became a potential death sentence when intercepted by enemies equipped with advanced code-breaking capabilities and real-time intelligence processing. The men of Fleet Radio Unit Pacific, working in their anonymous concrete bunker behind Pearl Harbor, had proven that mathematics and electronics were as deadly as torpedoes and depth charges. Bobby Chen and his fellow codebreakers never fired a shot, but their work orchestrated the destruction of Japan's submarine reconnaissance network and contributed directly to American victory in the Pacific. Modern submarine warfare still operates on the same principle that USS England demonstrated in May 1944. Whoever detects first survives. Today's nuclear submarines use sophisticated sonar arrays, satellite communications, and computerized fire control systems, but the fundamental challenge remains unchanged, remaining invisible while making your enemy visible. The lessons learned during those 12 days in 1944 continue to influence naval doctrine today. Submarine commanders still practice the same radical, evasive maneuvers that Lieutenant Commander Takeuchi attempted. Anti-submarine warfare specialists still train with the same obsessive intensity that Executive Officer Williamson demanded from his crew. The technology has evolved, but the deadly game of hunter versus hunted continues in waters around the world. Admiral Ernest King's congratulatory message, "There'll always be an England in the United States Navy," proved prophetic. A second USS England, a guided missile cruiser, served from 1963 to 1994, participating in Vietnam War operations and Desert Storm before being decommissioned and scrapped. But the original England's legacy transcends individual ships or battles. In 12 days during May 1944, American technology, intelligence, and training combined to demonstrate that traditional concepts of invisible warfare were obsolete. The age of submarine supremacy was ending, replaced by an era where information and precision weapons would decide victory before the first shot was fired. The Japanese submarines were indeed hunted down by America's sonar technology, but more than that, they were outmatched by a new kind of warfare that turned their own communications into their destruction and their traditional tactics into their doom.